He was primarily a manager. Looks like he's picking my nose. What is going on, you heels and baby faces? I'm Chris, and today on Nostalgia Dig, I'm going to be going through my old wrestling figures. The figures I have are from LJN, from the mid-'80s, WWF, now called WWE. This is a period often called the rock and wrestling era. It's when Hulk Hogan became a huge star. Macho Man Randy Savage, Roddy Piper. WrestleMania kind of started around this era. It seems like this is when they really tried to bring wrestling to a wider audience, including especially children, which I was at that age. They put them on right after cartoons in the morning. They were on Saturdays. Cartoons were usually on until about 11 or noon, and then they played wrestling and American Gladiators. And I think that was no accident. Like, they wanted kids to be watching this. And you can see in the types of wrestlers that they presented, there was a lot of kind of cartoony type characters that would appeal to younger people. So yeah, I'll just get into it. I've been watching wrestling since I was a little kid, and there's plenty I can say about it. So without further ado, let's dig in. Okay, we're going to start here with Jesse the Body Ventura. You can see he was pretty flamboyant in his dress. He usually had a boa, feather boa, lots of necklaces, glitter on his face, like in his little chin divot here, he would put like glitter. Went on to be the governor of Minnesota in real life. So that was quite an accomplishment. He really was a great talker, and in fact, by the time I started wrestling, he was almost exclusively a commentator. I don't know if he decided to stop wrestling or if he had an injury that forced him to stop, but he generally was always a commentator, and he was very good at it. Also had a career in Hollywood. I think he was in a lot of movies, but I generally remember him as being in the first Predator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So yeah, Jesse the Body. Next we have Roddy Piper, another wrestler who went on to have a career in Hollywood. I think They Live would be the movie that people associate with him the most. I think he did a lot of really low budget movies. But yeah, he was in They Live. One of the best heels from this era. When I say heel, if you're not into wrestling, heels are the bad guys. Faces or baby faces are the good guys, generally. So those terms are pretty interchangeable. But yeah, he always had a kilt on. Yeah, I have an actual removable cloth kilt, which is pretty cool. Another great talker. Very charismatic. Sometimes a good guy, sometimes a face, but generally known as being a really good heel. Beloved wrestler. One of my favorites. Like, even as a kid, I recognized how good he was, even though I generally rooted for the good guys. Like, I knew how good he was. Same with Macho Man Randy Savage. They were just so charismatic that I really liked him. Yep. The Hot Rod. Next, we have Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Probably my favorite wrestler as a kid, if I had to pick one. He was a good guy. He was a face. Not known for being a great talker. He didn't really have to be back then. Excellent in the ring. Just top-notch, all-star wrestler in the ring. Known for having a few really classic matches with Ric Flair. Not in the WWF, but in WCW. But yeah, his real name is Richard Blood, which is such a good name. He changed it to Ricky Steamboat from Richard Blood. Sounds like that's the most wrestling name I've ever heard, and he changed it. Ricky the Dragon. Next we have, this is a thumb wrestler, so it's still LJN, but a different line. This is Nikolai Volkov, a heel. In case you don't watch wrestling or didn't back then, being from another country is a good enough reason to be a bad guy, and being a patriotic American is a good enough reason to be a good guy. Like, they painted in very broad strokes back then. And there are, countries that America has historically had problems with, like Russia, some like that if you're going to get in that mindset, it makes more sense that they would be a bad guy. But there are some, like Canada, there are people who had a heel gimmick of being from Canada or from England. Just being from another country is not a good enough reason to be a heel. That's my opinion. Things are a little different now. They tried to keep that going up until way too recently, and I think people are kind of not having it anymore. So yeah, these are, you stick your finger in there and wrestle them together like that. I think the other one I had was Junkyard Dog. They came in a 2-pack. I do still have him. He's not with this group, so I'll try to find him at another point. But yeah, Nikolai Volkov. Okay, this is Jimmy Superfly Snuka. I'm not going to go into him a lot because I think one thing you have to... It's hard with these because they seem like fictional characters, and they are to an extent, but they're also real people. Like real people that live in this world that are good and bad, do good things, do bad things, allegedly. If you want to know more about Jimmy Snuka, there's lots you can read about him, watch it, there are television shows, documentaries. Not going to get into it here. But separating, I personally can't separate the character from the person when they do bad things. When I was a kid, I liked Jimmy Superfly Snuka. He was a good wrestling character. He did his big Superfly splash off the top, and he was really intense. It says on the back here, 1984 Titan Sports. That was WWE's corporate name back then, Titan Sports. So 1984. Some of these, I believe, say, let's see, Ricky Steamboat says 86. So there's a span of at least 2 years here. I'm not sure what the span of this line of toys was, but I got 2 years here. All right, moving on. All right, here we have Captain Lou Albano. He was primarily a manager. Looks like he's picking my nose. Some of you might know him as playing Mario on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. They had live action Mario and Luigi, and then they would go to a cartoon. not long after this, probably in the 90s, early 90s maybe? I don't know. But anyhow, he was an entertaining character. He had his cheek pierced and would have like a rubber band hanging from it. And that seemed weird to me as a kid. And it seems weird to me as an adult still. That was a weird choice, but memorable. Like, if that's what he was going for, that's a memorable thing. And 1986, Titan Sports, Captain Lou. Okay, here we have Tito Santana, babyface. I believe it says 1986 on the back. Here it's a little bit worn off. As you can see, a lot of these figures, he's probably the cleanest one I have. A lot of these figures are very played with. I used to play with these things a lot. A lot of paint missing, a lot of scuffs. They seem to have left scuffs on each other quite a bit. But they're very rubbery. They're bendy, but not in a way that it doesn't stay when you bend it. It snaps back into place, but they are very pliable. I think they've started making kind of throwback, like new figures, new characters, but in this style. Throwback to these, because these are so nostalgic to people and beloved, these LJN figures. Tito Santana seems like he was kind of like a mid-card babyface. I think he might have had the Intercontinental Championship, which is like the middle-of-the-road title. But generally, he was there to win enough where he seemed like he was a threat, but generally there to lose to a bad guy that's on the rise to make him seem like more of a credible threat to, you know, like when you're working your way up to fight Hulk Hogan or whoever's the champion, you got to go through Tito Santana or someone like that to make yourself seem more bona fide or whatever. Later on, they gave him the gimmick, the Matador. They had him wearing like Matador clothes. I still remember him just as Tito Santana, not so much as the Matador. So, yeah, Tito. This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. One of the funnier sculpts, just that look on his face and his just totally ripped body. He kind of looked like that. He was like, you didn't have to have a body like this to be in wrestling back then, but he did. He made it a long way with this look, because I don't remember him talking on the mic too much. Not known as a talker. I believe fought against Hogan early on. Like, he was one of Hulk Hogan's early foes during this period. I believe at the first WrestleMania, I think it was the main event, I believe, was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Yes, that Mr. T. Versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. I think that was the big main event. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, he was right in the mix back then. You see a lot of junk. I don't know how to get this stuff off. Also, comment if you know how to get this stuff off without damaging the figure. Because I would like to clean these up a little bit. At least get the schmutz off of them. So yeah, Mr. Wonderful. It's funny, I just had this thought. Like, when I was a kid, I remember having a ton of these. Like, so many. And now that I look here, I think I only have like 15 of them or so. It's just funny the way you remember things. There's one that's not in here. Bret the Hitman Hart. And he's probably actually the one that's the rarest one that I have, because he was the last one I ever bought. And I believe they didn't make as many of them. He was in a tag team called the Hart Foundation. Then he went on to be a big solo star, world champion, so sought after. people want that figure of Bret Hart because, he's a big deal. Supply and demand things, I guess, made him slightly more rare. He's not in here, though. I had him separated out for some reason, and I will find him in another bin or another box somewhere and show you, but just to let you know, this is most of them, though. This is almost all of them. Okay, here's Nikolai Volkov again. This is the big figure, not the thumb figure. Was in a tag team with the Iron Sheik. That's mostly what I know him as. They were the World Tag Team Champions. Seems like they were dominant champions when I was a kid. That's just how I saw them. Classy Freddy Blassie was their manager. Nikolai Volkov always sang the Russian national anthem at the beginning of their matches just to get all the fans to boo. And funny. I don't know if he came with a hat. He has you see the little one has this little fuzzy hat, furry hat. I'm not sure if this figure came with it or not. I don't think I have that anymore if he did. So yeah, I have 2 Nikolai Volkovs. All right. Next we have King Kong Bundy. He was a heel. Big giant man. See, if you can't tell by the figure, he was a mountain of a wrestler. I believe the main event of WrestleMania 2 was Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a steel cage. And that's when the steel cage was blue. Now it generally just looks kind of like a fence, like a silver fence. But back then it was square holes and bright blue. So yeah, he was a credible threat to the world title at one point. Don't believe he ever won it in the WWF. But yeah, King Kong Bundy. This is 1985, Titan Sports. I remember he has passed away, but I remember a few years back there was a thing called Bundy Night Raw, where you could pay him to come watch Monday Night Raw with you and just kind of chill out and have a party with King Kong Bundy and watch wrestling. Probably cost a lot because he would have to fly, probably pay for his plane ticket to fly to your town, pick him up, bring him to your house. Bundy Night Raw. Just funny. Yeah. Okay, we have a mini Bendy figure here. Just, for comparison. Mini figure. This might be the only one of the little ones I had. This is Hillbilly Jim. He was a face. Seems like he was always kind of friends with Hulk Hogan. He was one of Hogan's buddies or entourage. If they needed to get heat for a bad guy, have the bad guy beat up Hillbilly Jim, Hulk Hogan had to run out and make the save and then get revenge. I can't think of a specific time that happened, but that had to have happened at least once. But yeah, he had a good theme song called Don't Go Messing with a Country Boy, a real hoedown type song. Kids loved him, adults loved him. I think he wore a horseshoe around a chain on his neck and a big floppy hat. Hillbilly Jim. Next, we have Brutus Beefcake. That's a good sculpt. The arrogance really comes through. He's a heel. Part of a tag team with Greg the Hammer Valentine at the Dream Team, I think they were called, and won the tag belts together. In real life, a very good friend of Hulk Hogan, I believe. So wherever Hulk went, he went too and had an opportunity based on that. I think his real name is Ed Leslie, and he has a distinction of being a wrestler who has had more gimmicks than most any other wrestler I can think of. Because I believe even before he was Brutus Beefcake, he was, Hulk Hogan was called Terry Boulder before he was Hulk Hogan. And I think there was another Boulder, and they pretended to be brothers. I think it was him. He was Brutus Beefcake. There might have been some in the middle there. I've seen a big list before. I think there was 30 different gimmicks. He went on to be Brutus the Barber Beefcake, which is basically just this. They made him a good guy. He had a big pair of like pruning shears, and then that he would maniacally open and close. This sounds funny when you say it out loud. And he grew out a nice mullet for that. And then he would cut people's hair sometimes after he beat them, which is a weird wrestling thing. Like they would have hair matches, like the loser gets their hair cut. That's a long-running tradition in wrestling. Weird. But anyhow, he went on to be a lot of other things. Maybe just Google Ed Leslie gimmicks and see if you can find a list, because I found like a click-through list of all of his gimmicks once, and it's funny. Even if you're not really into wrestling, it's funny to see the journey that this man has taken. Brutus Beefcake. Okay. Here we have the Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik is an interesting dude to this day. He kind of has a presence and a following on Twitter, known for just saying funny, weird things in slightly broken English, because he's from Iran, legit from Iran. A lot of the people that are from places are not actually from those places. There's like, some guys that they're saying like, oh, he's from Africa. He's from, Atlanta. A legit athlete there, I believe. A funny follow on Twitter if you're looking for something different. Not safe for work in terms of language, I would say, or for small kids. But if you're an adult looking for something possibly entertaining, follow him on Twitter. But anyhow, like I said, him and Nikolai Volkov were a tag team for a while, and he was the world champion for a little bit. I believe he beat Bob Backlund to become the world champion, and then lost the belt to Hulk Hogan. Kind of like was the beginning to the whole rock and wrestling era. Sort of. I mean, I'm sure there's people that know the exact moment it started, but I feel like that was an important beat in that story. And to this day, he still curses the name of Hulk Hogan, and that's part of what makes his Twitter funny. Copyright 1984, Titan Sports. Another small story about this figure. One time, the Iron Sheik was supposed to come to the mall where I live to do a signing. And that's notable because the mall where I live is in a small town in Western New York, about an hour and a half away from any major airport. So you don't get like notable people coming here that often. So me, as a wrestling fan, I was probably, like, this is well after he had retired from wrestling, and I was probably in my 20s. So I dug this figure out. I went up to the mall. It was winter time, snowy. So I got there, and it said right on the little like sign underneath the mall, it said Iron Sheik here today. So I'm carrying this through the mall like a weirdo. I got there, and he wasn't there. It was someone else. It was one of the guys from Demolition, which was a tag team. I should have just gone and like got an autograph from the Demolition guy, but I was prepared for the Iron Sheik, and I was holding an Iron Sheik toy, so I was embarrassed to just walk up to a different guy and being like, trying to shove this in my pocket or something. So I just left. I never got him to sign my figure. That's my Iron Sheik story. Yeah, there he is. And finally, that was the last actual figure, but here's the ring. And as you can see, the ropes no longer are functioning properly. They're elastic, and over the years, the elastic has just degraded and they don't fit in here anymore. I think you could just go, I've seen people, you can find this type of stretchy material, redo this. I've seen people do it and it looks perfect. But yeah, it's got some funny stickers. There's the timekeeper on the side. Yeah, the announcer and camera crew there. I'm trying not to cover up my microphone. Yeah, just random kids with cameras, kid trying to get an autograph, sitting on the steps. They do not let kids do that. And then one kid laughing at a wrestler's downfall. Another kid very angry, about to throw his popcorn. He's got a hot dog there. These are funny stickers. But I've even seen people selling like replacement stickers to these after they get chewed up. Mine are in decent condition, actually, and the sticker in the middle here is still in pretty good condition. I love that old WWF logo. That's a really good one. That's classic. I don't think they've ever made one that good again. But yeah, there's the ring. Yep, this is copyright 1985, Titan Sports and LJN. And that's it for my LJN wrestling collection. This collection is definitely smaller than I remember it being as a kid. Like, I used to think that I had tons of these wrestlers. I have 15, and that's pretty cool. You know, oddly enough, I never had Hulk Hogan, who was, of course, the biggest star of that time. I do wish I had a Macho Man. There are some other ones that I would like to grab if I can find. And honestly, this condition is fine with me because all of mine are in this condition. I'm not looking for mint on card. But yeah, I'm going to keep my eye out when I go to a flea market or something. Maybe I could grab a couple more, flesh out my collection a little bit. Hopefully, if you're not into wrestling, this one didn't bore you too much. Hopefully it was still at least interesting. If you're enjoying watching these videos, I encourage you to subscribe. It really does help. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. And I'll see you on the next dig. Bye.